Honest J. Nowak, coming at you live. All right. A pleasure to meet y'all at last, and welcome back to HJN Graphix. And let's get on going with some more material here, shall we? Today, we're going to go ahead and focus on another pick from the Resident Evil series, Resident Evil 7. Yeah, the Lucky 7 finally gets itself a good treatment here on Graphix, so let's just get on into it, really. Resident Evil 7 by Capcom is the 7th official title that we got in the series, released in early 2017, making it the 7th official game out there in the Resident Evil canon, the 7th official part of the Resident Evil storyboard that has happened so far between 1996 and the present at the time, which was 2017, and then of course it became a time where we would actually have a first-person perspective. A first-person Resident Evil game may not have been something that's original, because there was Resident Evil Survivor back in 2000 on the PlayStation 1, which probably is in fact the absolute worst piece of all Resident Evil storylines possible. So I guess we'll just leave that out pretty much. But the thing is, Resident Evil 7 actually goes as far as to give us a first-person perspective and even some new characters, Ethan and Mia Winters. And these two are in fact now part of the official Resident Evil canon, and they've pretty much been so for a little while now. As a matter of fact, for those who have played Resident Evil Village, like I have, then you probably would have known exactly where Resident Evil 7 was going to be going on afterwards. So the thing is, this game introduces quite a few new things to it. After all, the first official 6 titles, plus all the other Resident Evil games that have pretty much come about since day one, have shown quite a lot of impressive storylines. But the truth is that with part 6, it practically became almost redundant. So Resident Evil 7 not only reboots the franchise, but it also gives us a whole new window. Being a sequel and technically a reboot of the franchise, since it is in fact a much more impressive feat of gameplay and control, and even a nice way to reproduce the survival horror element that many people had considered lost by Resident Evil 6's release in 2012. So Resident Evil 7, or Resident Evil Biohazard as most people would call it nowadays, just so happens to be way better than most people have already thought about it. It is a handy way to be a sequel and to be a reboot to the franchise. It gives us the same old stuff that we've always wanted from Resident Evil all this time. A nice way to bring the series back into full circle for a whole new generation of audiences, for a whole new series of Generation 8 console players across the globe, and a nice way for Capcom to finally catch a break. After all the stuff that they had basically pulled off between 1996 and 2012, starting with Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, this would in fact be a nice way to continue the story without losing any sort of fan base. I myself played this game when I downloaded it on PlayStation Now alongside a few others last year. But the truth is, this is not only a sequel and a reboot, but wow, it's such an amazing feat of engineering. Is it such a nice way to code, program, and put together such an amazing little thing like this? Man, I don't necessarily know how else I could possibly comment on it, so I guess I'll just leave you with this. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, if you will, starts off with Ethan Winters going out to the south to find Mia Winters inside of a large house inside the swamps of the south. And upon arrival, Ethan comes across quite a few different things out there. quite a few unique details that seem a bit spooky. But unfortunately, a certain curse had taken place within the household. The Baker family, which of course were the main residents of this exact household, had apparently gone mad, and then eventually kidnapped Ethan. It basically starts off at a point where Ethan Winters is in fact able to gain all sorts of impressive feats out there. But the truth is here that the entire Baker family had pretty much gone mad and are pretty much out for blood, lust, and flesh against the Winters family. So it's up to Ethan to basically put an end to all this. A certain fungus and mold had in fact been colonizing all throughout this region. And then of course the Baker family end up getting infected by all this and eventually turn insane. And upon this happening, Ethan has to basically find a way to put an end to this entire family. And as a result, possibly put this entire reign of terror to an end. The whole thing about this game really has a lot of people biting their nails and struggling and eventually getting jump scared every now and then. Because let's not forget, the jump scare effect was a huge hit throughout 2010's audiences. And it does seem that every now and then it seems to carry on to today. So it probably only makes sense that something that was so popular in the last decade does in fact make quite a big comeback these days. But upon all of this, all this puzzle solving that happens, all this collection of items and weapons of all sorts, Ethan Winters eventually finds Mia Winters out there alone and helpless. But in any case, I will still go as far to point out that this not only has a lot in mind, but it really is quite a handy way in keeping the players on their toes constantly, trying to get them to continue playing the game, to continue all the puzzle solving, to continue finding all the different pathways that you have to do in order to find specific items, certain weapons, and all the different ways to progress through the story as far as possible. I myself had spent a lot of time on that game. It happened to be at a nice length of around 12 to 13 hours throughout my entire playthrough. And of course, you'll be able to see this pretty soon on GWK throughout multiple series that I have planned in the future. So Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, being a way to bring the franchise back into full circle to allow Capcom to catch a break after all that has happened throughout the main series so far, this one really takes the cake. It really does whatever it possibly can to give us all that we need. And it got so big, in fact, that there actually was a straight up sequel that would eventually make its way to the PlayStation 5 library, while at the same time still being out there for PS4 audiences and gamers worldwide to play, like myself. Resident Evil Village, which is also known as Resident Evil 8. The title arc basically makes it that clever. It spells out village with the VII, the Roman numeral for 8. So, I will actually talk about that at some point in the future. But until then, consider Biohazard to be an outstanding feat. To be a whole new way to play Resident Evil, and to be an entirely new perspective on all the stories that have unfolded in the franchise overall. And if you want to see more, go down to my channel, then make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.